Imagine, if you will, a world in which a man goes from undead zombie, dressing like an old mortician, to a satanic cult leader, goes on to become a kick-ass biker, and then full circle into supernatural force harnessing his old powers. Now that's pro wrestling. It can be easy for wrestlers to play multiple successful gimmicks in the same run. For proof, look at two of the biggest names in the history of the business, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. The former's ringmaster gimmick was rubbish, and Rocky Maivia was once hit with chants of "Die Rocky Die" as he bravely smiled through the hate. Yeah, it's fair to say nobody thought that guy was going to become Hollywood's leading man. But their initial failures only make the successes of others even more impressive. There's even some who have played different characters simultaneously, and those who have used one guise as a launching pad to another. That takes some serious skill, because it's hardly assured that persona number 2 will resonate, especially when peddling the royal gimmick, ditching everything that's fun, or wearing a see-through mask. Speaking of which, I'm Adam Nicholas, and these are 10 wrestlers that rock multiple gimmicks at once. Number 10, Cody Rhodes. From dashing to disfigured. That was Cody Rhodes' story when he traded dental floss for a clear protective mask that viewers were told was there to hold his tarnished face together. At first glance, the tale told of another self-obsessed heel being put in his place, but the brilliance of Cody's work was in the finer details. He, more so than WWE creative, made the gimmick work. Instead of continuing his over-the-top speeches about how he'd once again be prettier than everyone when he healed, Cody Rhodes could have broken dejected soul who had been mentally as well as physically crushed by Rey Mysterio's attacks on his previously flawless features. It was genius, and it was one of the most overlooked periods of Cody's run. Forget all this Stardust nonsense, this was Rhodes at his best. His Batman villain approach to a genuine shattered nose made him one of SmackDown's best and most captivating characters in 2011, and it really should have led to bigger things. Number 9, Sting. By 2011, WCW icon Sting could have turned up to work in TNA with simply a smile and phoned it in. He'd long since proven himself to fans, and nobody could have blamed the Stinger for going through the motions. To the man's credit though, his work that summer was anything but generic. In fact, it was rather spectacular. Almost overnight, Sting tweaked his legendary Crow gimmick to include character traits of both Jack Nicholson's Joker from the 1989 hit Batman and Heath Ledger's version of the crime clown Prince from 2008's The Dark Knight. It was somehow a seamless transition, and it turned Sting from token legend into insane icon, who acted as a menace to Hulk Hogan's Immortal group. Best of all, Sting seemed to be having an absolute blast as a borderline psychopath. It wouldn't be long until he returned to his old ways, but Sting's Joker stint must be remembered as one of his most intriguing. His ability to flit in and out of insanity when it suited his mind game-ridden crusade against the heels showed his chops as a performer, and some newfound fire on the microphone. Number 8, Kane. No, it's fair to say Corporate Kane was not a high point of Glenn Jacobs' career, and yes, the Authority storyline was an endless rehash of Vince McMahon's corporation from the 1990s. Still, it was cool to see Kane, one of WWE's most flexible characters, in spite of his original one-note characterization, try something different. As much of the story ended up getting worse and worse with each passing week, seeing Kane hand his trademark mask to a grinning Stephanie McMahon, trade in his demon guise and become a tool for her whims was a nifty story beat at first. It made the Authority look powerful, and it once again prolonged Kane's run. That man has done almost everything. Kane has been a vengeful brother, awkward lover, unfortunate victim of WWE's writing team, reborn sociopath, comedy character, and more. Somehow, someway, he's always managed to remain relevant throughout all this nonsense, and his Corporate Kane run was yet more evidence of that. Number 7, Hulk Hogan. Deep down, WWE must have known that a fan base starved of Hulkamania for 9 years would go wild for Hulk Hogan's return in 2002. Try as they might, the company couldn't convince people to view Hulk Hogan and his buddies Scott Hall and Kevin Nash of the NWO as heels. Straight away, Hulk was treated like a favourite son upon his return. That bottled up affection paved the way towards yet another period of red and yellow dominance at the top of the card. Mere months after being reintroduced as a cancer to kill the promotion he once carried on his back, Hogan had returned in his trademark garb and was dropping leg drops like the big man he was back in 1987. The fans absolutely ate it up, and they helped Hulk Hogan turn from NWO Hollywood to yellow and red superhero all over again. From February to August, Hogan went from monochrome menace to the kind of guy kids could have on their lunchboxes once again. It was an amazing sight to behold, even more so when Hulk beat Triple H to become the king of the mountain once again at Backlash. The message was clear for all to see. Hulk still rules, brother. Number 6, Bray Wyatt. When a sock in box resulted in a Brooklyn crowd collectively pissing themselves laughing, along with the buzzard itself, the Bray Wyatt relaunch looked as if it might be over before it had even started. But of course, what the hell do we know? Within weeks, Mercy, Ramblin' Rabbit and Abby the Witch formed part of WWE's hottest recurring segment as the Eater of Worlds was literally destroyed in front of our very eyes. A sleeker, slender, more sinister Bray Wyatt emerged from the shadows of his former failures, running a chainsaw through a cardboard replication of his old self in episode 1 of the chilling Firefly Funhouse. And haven't we all wanted to do that before? He begged to be let back in, but the heavy knits and toothy grin betrayed a terrifying fiend that was lurking below the surface. The psychopathic opposing forces remained at odds with one another for weeks as the segments descended further into Wyatt's own insanity, until of course the inevitable occurred. The fiend overpowered his frenzied friend, bringing brand new Bray back from the dead and into arenas with chilling effectiveness. Finn Balor and Mick Foley were early victims of this horrifying new creation, as they had to be in order to continue this remarkable rehabilitation. The sky is once again the limit for the former cult leader, even if it's blackened and dulled by his impossibly evil alter ego. In the name of Yowie Wowie, Vince, please don't mess this up. Number 5, Chris Jericho. Just over 8 years after bounding onto WWE TV as a millennium-themed savior, Chris Jericho bounced back onto WWE programming in late 2007 and appeared to look like the love child of celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay and John Bon Jovi. That joke has been done before, but it's true. Look at him. Now, this was a weird time to be a Jerichoholic. The Y2J character seemed woefully out of touch with an emerging generation of fans, and the flashy waistcoats Jericho sported would have been more at home on Strictly Come Dancing. Something had to change. Chris Jericho knew it, and the super switched-on Canadian had a plan. He ditched the flash, systematically eliminate everything fans enjoyed about his rebellious rockstar work, and become a suited, stoic misery guts who deliberately spoke in hushed tones. When combined with Jericho's ever-solid ring work, this new character revitalized his comeback, and it shouldn't be taken for granted. Not just any old worker could have realised their classic presentation had worn thin and taken bold steps away from it to make it better. Jericho, however, has never been one to rely on pure nostalgia for too long. This was further proof that he's one of wrestling's best when it comes to reinvention, even during the same run. Number 4, JBL. After his brief Stan Hansen-style cowboy runs as a singles wrestler on Monday Night Raw hadn't quite worked in 2002, WWE put Bradshaw back with Ron Simmons as the APA. Their tried and tested mercenaries for hire gimmick rolled on until Simmons' retirement 2 years later. But post-APA, some reasoned Bradshaw would try again as a cowbell-swinging brawler. But not quite. He just so happened to turn into the best parts of Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Man and J.R. Ewing from TV staple Dallas instead, and shot up the ladder to capture his first world title and become SmackDown's lead heel. As far as transformations go, this one was stunning, and a one few could have predicted either. As rich businessman JBL, Bradshaw had a new lease of life. Reimagined without the beer drinking, card playing, cigar smoking, ass kicking qualities of before, JBL became dynamite foil for Eddie Guerrero's impassioned babyface run, and finally had a successful single stint that he could boast about. Not to mention becoming one of the favourite heels of What Culture Wrestling's Ben Roy Turner either. Isn't that right, Ben Roy? Number 3, Triple H. Now this is a funny one because Triple H is ostensibly the same character he was when running around with Shawn Michaels as D-Generation X in 1997. That was his first major change, going from Greenwich snob Hunter Hearst Helmsley to a more realistic, more rebellious character. In the 21 years since, Triple H has been known as The Game, the King of Kings, the Cerebral Assassin, the Ass Kicker, and a corporate suit. Throughout all of this, he's kept the name Triple H and managed to maintain both his credibility inside and outside of the ring and upkeep the most powerful parts of his presentation. Now, to be fair, that's quite remarkable, really, when you compare the juvenile prankster in D-Generation X to the current father of NXT and leader of the Authority. Triple H's run, aside from a few injuries, has never really been broken. He's been a continuous WWE employee since 1995, and he's rarely given rightful credit for reinventing himself across multiple generations. Without much interruption, Triple H has been a rich nobleman, a degenerate, a barometer of in-ring brilliance, the cerebral assassin, a stiff corporate sellout, and much, much more. And none of those variations, barring maybe his wobbly start as a snooty aristocrat, have been anything less than impactful. Number 2, The Undertaker. Before his Judgment Day 2000 return, fans had last seen The Undertaker as a quasi-satanic cult leader towards the end of 1999. Taker was often seen rolling his eyes into the back of his head, inviting foes to rest in peace, and acting like WWE's living living embodiment of the devil. But that all changed when the dead man traded eye rolls for a tobacco spit cup. The character had retained some of the undead zombie characteristics it was famous for before taking a holiday to heal up in 1999. When he came back, the Undertaker was that in name only. Suddenly, fans were told that he had a real life outside of wrestling, and he acted as more of a butt-kicking southern badass than a supernatural nightmare. Now, there was a lot of risk involved here, and it could have fallen flat had Taker not been so believable in the role. It's almost like this is who he is in real life. That there was any cause at all for the American badass gimmick to return earlier this year shows just how powerful it had been previously. And, interesting tidbit, a very young Adam Nicholas absolutely loved this gimmick. The Undertaker slid neatly into life as a more plausible human being after years of playing a phantom said to be dead, and that alone is one of his biggest triumphs. Only topped, of course, by his discovery of a tank top at Extreme Rules. That's going to give him 2 more years at least. And number 1, because who the hell else was it going to be? Mick Foley. Unlike almost everyone else on this list, Mick Foley didn't stop at playing multiple characters during the same run. Nah, Mick Foley wasn't satisfied with that, and Mrs. Foley's baby boy fancied trying his hand at showing that he could pull such wizardry off in the same goddamn show. At 1998's Royal Rumble, Foley would enter the match as Cactus Jack, Mankind, and Dude Love. And in 2000, Mick could add a 4th face to the famed 3 faces of Foley, and it just so happened that face was himself. Nobody else can crow about being in world title matches as 4 different characters. That brag belongs to Mick and Mick alone. He is without a doubt the number 1 example of someone who successfully rocked more than one gimmick during the same stint. And it just so happened that every single one of these had something to love. From Mankind's deranged madness and Cactus Jack's violence to Dude's dorky coolness and Foley's likeable everyman. There was something unique and there was something for everyone. And not to mention, of course, all of the different merch and action figures. Isn't that right, Phil?